do it live.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Cinematic Lounge. Hey, Chris.
Hey.
How are you?
I'm good, Ralph. How you doing, man?
I'm all right. How was your holiday?
My holiday was very good until I got COVID.
Nice.
Yeah, it was
The
first
gift that keeps on giving.
Hey, it was the first time I've ever gotten it.
Really?
Yeah, but I'll be honest with you. I was only down for like 2 days.
Yeah.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I lived in my basement for a week and a half.
Oh, nice.
Well, my
Little
kids.
break?
Well, hey, my kids didn't get it. My wife didn't get it.
Nice.
So
Well, then you had a little time
you
to
know,
yourself.
I know. Actually, I caught up on some television.
All right, good. Good. All right, speaking of television, not television, the reason we're here is Chris is now going to host or lead a new feature.
Sure.
We're going to call The Five.
The Five.
Not to be confused with
Not to be confused with Fox News
No,
is the
not
five.
that you could, but
There's
that's
just the two of us,
just-
but it's going to be 5 movies we're talking about.
Right. And we're going to start this one rather interestingly, I think. Okay.
Yeah.
Anybody that's seen our old show, if you have, thank you.
Yes.
Hopefully you've switched to this one. Yippee-Ki-Yay, Mother podcast. One of the things that happened in that is we reviewed a movie called RRR.
Yep.
The Indian film RRR.
Yep.
I think the subject was new films that you've seen or
Yeah, it was
something.
movies we had never seen.
Movie we've never seen.
Right.
And Drew brought RRR.
RRR.
And
Big
we
hit.
suddenly we went from 150 views to 9,000 overnight because
Yeah.
we tapped into this gold mine called Indian
Cinema.
fans.
Yes,
and fans.
they're very active.
And they
great
jacked
fans.
our subscriptions up, and their comments were insane. Which is,
Tons.
it turns out, what you need is comments and engagement. It turns out,
Yes.
and that gets your algorithm way up. Well,
Yeah.
we hit a mother load, and we switched. We didn't switch. We created a new show called
Indian Cinemaniacs.
Indian Cinemaniacs, which we had a good time doing.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
And then it wasn't fun anymore.
Well, I mean, I'm going to throw this out here. And as much as we enjoyed the Indian cinema, and I truly did.
We did.
I think it was a case of if you had asked me to watch a French film every week
Yeah.
for a year, I would have gotten burned out on French films too,
Mm-hmm.
or German films or Chinese films or whatever. Right. So I think that was just kind of the case. We definitely had a little bit of burnout toward the end there. And plus there was like just a constant fire hose of suggestions.
There was that, never stopped.
Yeah,
and
which
you
was
add,
good.
You add the fact that the average time on most of these was 2.5 hours.
If
you
that-
hit one that was an hour and a half, it
that
was a
short-
joy. It was a
I
pleasure.
Yeah,
Now, having said all that, we saw a lot of great films.
tons.
So the 5 that we're going to talk about tonight are
Yes.
kind of the 5 that Chris and I picked that represent films that we both. For me, I'll tell you.
Right.
For me, it was films I remembered.
Right.
Because you talk about a gish gash. We had so many different types of films.
Yeah.
And they all kind of blended and became the same.
To some extent, yeah.
Okay. And these are also 5 that I would recommend to an American audience this is for me, to go,
Yeah.
okay, here's some Indian cinema that I think you might enjoy.
Yes.
And this was part of the 5.
Yeah.
And we grouped our together to come up with the 5.
With the 5.
But it is.
It's going to be ones that I think that, especially in a number of them, you're going to see why. I think you'll understand why we picked them and why we think they make a good entry point
Right.
into Indian cinema, at least from an American perspective.
Right.
From
So
our
there
perspective.
From our perspective. So I have it up here on the computer,
Nice.
and we'll go through and we'll hit and we'll talk about the one we see. I didn't tell you the order. I don't even remember the order.
Yeah, okay,
So,
let's do
so
it.
I know the first one is RRR, so we
Right.
can just talk about that and just say
Yeah.
this is the one that got us into Indian film, and it's an amazing film.
It is. It's
I actually
terrific.
saw this at the theater with people. And it was an amazing experience.
Nice.
I also saw another one with Sean and Debbie that I had a great time at as well.
You know, did I ever tell you the funny story on that?
No.
A woman I worked with in our marketing department.
Oh, she was there.
She was right behind you, and
Right.
she was like, "Hey, did your friend who does that pod? Did you do the podcast with? Did he go see RR?"
Yeah.
And I was like, I really wish you would have said you were just a big fan and introduced yourself. That would have.
It would have been amazing.
Yeah,
I would have lost my mind.
Yeah.
And the fact is, everybody at that show, we were all into it.
Yeah.
And then we all sat around and talked about it after.
That's
which
nice.
Obviously, when you go to an American film, you
That
want to get
almost
the hell out of
never
there
happens.
as soon as possible.
The last time I ever talked about a movie with strangers after I saw it, I was at the AFI, and my wife and I had gone to see a showing of Casablanca. And I had like a 3-minute conversation with a couple of other people after watching Casablanca.
Yeah.
And we were really and it was really a question of like timeline, you know? about how long was it between the fall of Paris and
Oh, because you're a history guy, right?
Yes.
And your wife's a history teacher.
she's a history teacher.
Right. So yeah, so that would figure into
So
that.
we sat there and we kind of discussed the timeline between, it feels like it's supposed to. Anyway, we're not talking about Casablanca.
So we'll go to the next film now.
Yes.
Like, just to be clear, I'm not going to know any actors' names.
Oh, gosh.
I'm not going to try to pronounce them. I'm not going to know the director.
No.
Maybe this one, S.S. Rajamouli's, I'll remember. Because
Rajamouli,
another
yeah.
one of his film is going to pop up here. I know
Yes.
that for a fact.
Yes.
But I'm not going to be able to. So I'm just going to talk about what I remember about the film and why I enjoyed it. And I hope you do the same thing.
That's the plan.
That's the plan with
The Five.
The Five. All right. So here we go. Here's the first one.
All right, let's do it.
Ready?
Yeah. Oh, yes.
Andhadhun. You want to describe this one? 'Cause-
Andhadhun. I don't even know how to say it.
Yeah.
But this might be my number
This
one.
is your top?
This may be
This is your top of the five?
This may be my all-time favorite Indian movie.
Oh, wow.
One of the reasons why, and I think it would be great for American audiences, this is a super Hitchcockian movie, right? It's got Hitchcock vibes all the way through it. It's got great twists. It has an absolutely stunning lead femme fatale in, I guess her name is. I don't know. I don't know if you'd say
Great
Taboo.
femme fatale.
Yes.
Taboo. I mean, we know that. Yeah.
You think, but so this one I love. Basically, the story is, if you don't know, or to get you interested, just kind of wet your whistle a little bit. The story is, it's a guy. The reason he's got those sunglasses on is he's blind. And he's a piano player.
He pretends to be blind.
Well, he pretends to be blind.
To learn how to perfect his piano,
Exactly.
but he's blind.
But yeah, he's also
People see
kind
him
of-
as blind.
Yeah, he's kind of running a scam, and people are helping him out because he's blind and all this kind of stuff. And even though he's kind of working at that and kind of doing it for other reasons, it suddenly it spirals into this situation when he meets an old Indian movie star who owns like a nightclub or something, and he's playing piano at the nightclub, and the old Indian movie star, who is actually played by an old Indian movie star, who's great in it, by the way.
What's his name?
I don't know.
I know. Just kidding.
But it's really great, and the actress Taboo, who's in a number of other movies that I'm a huge fan of, she's just like she's like next level good looking. She's not like human. Like she's so pretty she doesn't seem to be human.
Yeah, most Indian the actresses. That they
oh
put
gosh,
in
they're
this
all
film are just
stunning. You know, they really are. But she, for whatever reason, and she's a great actress too.
Yeah.
Like she really is.
He's pretending to be blind.
He's pretending to be blind, and the hook is what happens is that he essentially witnesses a murder
in front of him,
right? But
while he's playing the piano blind at someone's apartment, and they think he's blind.
They think he's blind, so they're trying.
They think they're getting away with murder.
Exactly. So they're trying to get around all of this stuff. And then what happens?
Also harvesting, isn't there? Is this the one where organs are being harvested?
I don't remember
By
the
the end
organs.
of it?
I don't. Maybe.
Okay. I think
but
it is. Like
maybe there's a little organ
yeah.
harvesting. But basically, what happens is so he is trying to. He wants to maintain his secret, right? But he also doesn't want to let this crime go.
There's a girl he's also, of course, in every Indian film. There's a
Yes.
romance that's going on.
Oh, sure.
She thinks he's blind. He's trying to protect,
because
some little kid knows he's not blind. That kid that's in the apartment.
It's
it's all coming back. Yeah.
Yeah, because what's so great about it is you're watching it and you're like, he's fashioned this life for himself, and it's better than what he had, but it all hinges on him being blind. Right. So if he says, I saw what happened, I can see, he's going to lose it all. He's going to lose his job. He's going to lose his apartment because I think that's subsidized maybe. Or I got
because
that
he's
vibe.
blind.
Because he's blind.
Right.
And he's going to lose his super awesome, cute girlfriend that he's
Right.
got. I mean, she's just absolutely, it's funny. And the actresses, and this is true of American actresses, you have two kinds. You have the smoking hot, unbelievably gorgeous, and then just the adorably cute.
Think of Speed. What's her name?
Sandra Bullock.
Sandra Bullock.
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
Yeah.
The movie I saw her first in was The Vanishing, The American Vanishing.
Oh, yeah.
She plays the girlfriend, and she's doing the peace sign as she's walking away to the thing before she gets taken.
Yeah.
And oh my God, she was cute. So, okay, all right. But he does actually get his eyes. That's what I mean.
It goes through it.
Someone super glues his eyes. Someone who's
well, she does
but that's because
she figures out that he's not blind,
right?
And then there's
she's trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
She thinks it is, and then she actually blinds it.
Then there's all these double crossing going on, and they're both it's fantastic.
So it's a blast.
Yeah, it's really a great.
Yeah.
It's well plotted. It's well paced.
Right.
Like I said, if you're a fan of any kind of Hitchcockian movie.
Yeah.
Like if you like Hitchcock movies or things with that kind of that twisty and that. What's also great about it is he's a great character. He's got this. He's not an evil person, but he's a selfish kind of self-centered guy.
But you're rooting for him.
But you're rooting for him.
You're totally rooting for the guy.
Mainly because this lady, by the end of it, she's killed like 4 people.
I know. Doesn't she end up in a trunk dead? Is this the one with the rabbit and the arrow and the rabbits in the car?
Oh gosh!
Remember that stop? Yeah, because
yeah.
it runs across, and that's how it ends. Because the rabbit pops up, and the car ends up flipping over, and she's in the trunk. See, that's what I mean.
Yeah,
it's all
right.
piecing. It's all. But I do remember this is a film I loved.
Yeah,
and it's one I would definitely recommend.
Yeah,
to an American audience.
Totally.
I think it's great.
Totally.
Okay, so that's the first one.
All right.
See the second one. Well, another one with there she is again.
Yeah, there she is again.
This is Drishyam.
This is also a favorite of mine.
Drishyam. Yeah, this was okay. So in India, there is many places that movies are made. And I couldn't even describe all the territories. But we know about Bollywood and then Malayalam films, right?
And then, but there's also, it's Bollywood and what's the other one? Tamil. Tamil films that are in Tamil. I forget the location or the designation, what the phrase is for those kinds of movies. But like you said, I'm sorry, I cut you off.
No, that's okay. So this is a movie that was made in all these... Same movie made in all these different territories.
Yes,
I think we're watching the Bollywood.
This is the big Bollywood version
that we all got into. So tell them about Drishyam. What's going on here?
Drishyam is great too because what I like about Drishyam is Drishyam basically stars a guy who knows all about movies, who loves movies. Right?
He owns a cable company.
He owns a cable company. And it's like a little local cable company, and they show a lot of movies, and he's always watching movies, and so he sees all these things in these crime movies and whatnot, and he's like the smartest guy in the village, right? But he didn't go to college or something. No, he's not.
Everybody knows that he's the smartest guy.
He is
like lawyer level.
We would call him like lower middle class. Like he is a working class dude, but he has done well for himself. He has a nice house. He has a beautiful wife and a family. And what all comes down here is a rich kid, right? Basically, who's a bit of a scumbag.
Yep.
Not a bit of one, he is.
Yep.
Films his daughter in the shower or something
This guy's daughter.
And so then he tries to...
blackmail her.
Basically, force her to hook up with him. Or else he's going to show this video everywhere.
Right, and the idea that this woman, I think he was recorded in the shower.
Yes,
and that's enough to cause her complete anxiety and my life is
shame
over. You
and
shame
everything.
And you can't do this to me. And what happens is the mother ends up.
What happens is the mother gets involved, and before you know it, this kid ends up dead. Right,
and buried.
So what happens is they start to try to do the old hide the body trick, only to find out that the son is the daughter, he is the son of a very powerful lawyer.
Right.
Yeah, a lawyer, and his mother is like
the chief inspector.
Yes, the chief inspector, played by once again the absolutely stunning Taboo.
Right. So it's detective against criminal. Although again, we are rooting for him, the criminal who buried a body that his wife killed to protect the daughter.
And once again,
the yellow car. This is the one with the yellow car.
Yeah,
and
the little, yeah.
That's what I mean. I'm bits and pieces, but I remember it.
And this is the one where also the main guy, who's fantastic also, he does this whole thing where he goes and he buys all these tickets and he does all this stuff to provide an alibi for him and his family.
I remember that. Going to the movie. And
going to the movie.
Making friends with the restaurateur. So they remember, I remember that guy. He was great. He came in the restaurant. He was awesome.
And he would always give them the wrong day or something so they would remember that. And there was like this whole thing. And so, but what's funny about it is what I really enjoyed is that he gets all of this, he gets all of these ideas and all of this expertise by the movies that he's watched, right? And it's all the different movies that allows him to essentially... get away with murder, but for the right reasons, because this guy was a real scumbag.
Yeah, and there's a lieutenant of the of her that was the torture. He tortured everybody.
Oh, yes.
There's a scene where he tortures the whole family, including the little daughter. It's very graphic.
Yeah,
and
it's
brutal.
really rough.
As a matter of fact, the Malayalam version of this, which is the exact same film, just different actors, was even harsher than this one.
That's right.
It was a little. This one's a little glossier. But same idea.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's something you see and it seems like we've run across this before, where I think this is the second version. I think the Malayalam was first.
Yeah,
and then, I think this is something that's pretty common from what we've seen. What do you call it? the Bollywood folks come along and they say, oh, well, this one did well here. It's a great story. Let's do our version of it. And it tends to be bigger and bolder and glossier,
I love their remakes of American films, the Forrest Gump, and there's some others that are direct.
Oh, I never actually saw the Forrest Gump
crazy. There's also a Drishyam 2.
Yes.
Which this thing ends kind of on a bit of a cliffhanger.
Kind of an up in the air moment.
He ends up, the whole thing is is the body buried underneath, because the whole thing, they're building a new police station.
Yes.
And the body ends up being buried under the new police station in the cement under the floor.
Yeah,
But at the end of this one, someone sees him doing that. So Drishyam 2 starts with this guy blackmailing him, knowing. But it ends up still, and there's a super cop that comes in the second Drishyam 2.
It's so funny because I literally had seen this movie, and I was in Chicago of all places, and my wife and I went to the movies, and we saw the Banshees of Inisherin, but Drishyam 2 was also playing, and I remember thinking to myself, if my wife had seen Drishyam
in Chicago,
in Chicago, like in a regular theater,
great. That's great.
That's the funny thing. Like, I mean, around us, the Cinemark chain, they have 2-3 Indian films.
Well, the Egyptian
there.
over there,
Cinemark.
they got lots of.
They got
Indian
2 or
films.
3 Indian movies almost all the time.
Yeah, and great crowds, man.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the one thing we learned doing these films is. It's an event when people go to the movies.
Yeah.
That's why they're so long. That's why they have a built-in intermission, because they don't have supposedly they're not as well. They're middle class. So the movie is a big deal to go out. So it has to be an event, and they really get into what they're doing. They're cheering. They're yelling at the screen.
Yeah,
they're heroes.
It's a very different kind of experience.
Different vibe. But I can understand it. Like I said, when I saw RRR in the theater, it was an amazing experience, and I would have been loving a hoop and holler like I used to do at Rocky Horror.
Yeah, exactly.
We did that, but we don't do it now, which is great. If someone started doing that, you go, "What the hell's going on?" Yeah. But and the actor in here, I'm not going to know his name. I'm sorry. I've seen him. We saw him in a bunch of films as well. I really got to like this guy too. So Drishyam.
That's, he was in that one about the pilot, the Runway 34 or something like that.
I love that movie, but it was cheesy as hell. All right. Here we go. So, Indian films are bold and big. Like the heroes are huge. The myths are huge. It's based on myth,
but not all of them. Like we know. The thing I noticed is that like I really personally liked a lot of the Malayalam films we saw,
because they're more grounded.
Because they're much smaller films and they're more character driven, and the people feel a little bit more realistic, as opposed to like Doom 3, which was whatever.
We don't. Okay.
Anyway.
Okay. Let's go to number 3.
The number 3 on the list.
Okay.
Eega.
Okay, Eega. So this is another Raji. What's his name?
SS Rajamouli.
SS Rajamouli. This is an early one.
Yes.
And this is great. It's basically based on a. He wrote it as a story to his daughter.
Oh, okay.
And what it's about a young man who again falls in love with a woman, a beautiful woman.
Yeah.
And at the same time, the woman's in she's a school teacher or something, but she ends up with a gangster. Who falls in love with her. So the gangster is getting her in his life, trying to get closer to her. Meanwhile, this guy's trying to have a relationship with her, the young guy. Gangster kind of finds out this is going on and kills the guy.
I know.
Okay?
Really romantic.
I mean, brutal. Yeah. And then the guy gets reincarnated as a fly and comes back and just taunts abuses the gangster.
Yeah. Drives him slowly
crazy with this fly. And the premise is ridiculous. You go, there's no way they can pull this off. No way.
They do.
And guess what?
They do.
They totally pull it off.
Now, and
you believe you're rooting for this fly. It turns out, the woman's also just happens to be a miniature artist or something. She makes little miniature things. So she was able to stitch together goggles for the fly and stuff to help.
It's really crazy. So he wouldn't get he wouldn't be as affected by like bug spray and stuff like that.
Right. She protected him with her little miniature. So,
well, the funny thing about this movie is, and I'm gonna apologies in advance. So I'm no expert on really any religion, but I know that in a lot of Indian religions that reincarnation is a much it's an integral part of many of their religions. So I think that this is one of those things where for us it seems like this crazy idea, even though it totally works and it's funny.
No, the movie works.
You might I could see where, if you grew up with the idea, at least culturally, if not religiously, of reincarnation being something that you just kind of understand, this doesn't seem that like nuts. Do you know what I mean?
No, the reincarnation aspect of it.
Yeah.
Of course.
Because, I mean, it reminds me a little bit of movies like, what is that? There's that movie, Chances Are, with Sybil Shepherd.
Okay.
Where that's a movie where her boyfriend or her husband dies, and then he ends up being reincarnated into a body, but doesn't lose his memories. And there are movies like that. The Heavenly Kid.
There's the Todd Haynes one with what's her name? AMC lady, the actress.
Nicole Kidman.
Nicole Kidman, where her husband dies and gets reincarnated as a 10-year-old boy that she ends up having a relationship with.
Wow.
That gets weird. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
That's super weird.
So back to this one. The Fly, it's fun. It's not weird.
No, it's not weird at all.
Not at all.
It's pretty.
But
it's
you
pretty
buy it. You go, wait a minute. A fly can't. How can a fly? Because all they do is swat it and it's done. But just the director is so creative, and you saw that in RRR, obviously. But this is like an early one, but it's there. And the graphics aren't cheesy. The CGI works.
It does.
The reviews from The Fly. You're rooting for The Fly. It's the craziest film I've ever seen, and I absolutely loved it. And this
was a solid entry. I mean, I once again, when we heard about it, and I was like, this is a Fly. I was like, you get that feeling, you get that little sinking feeling. You're like, this one's not going to work. And then the more you watch it, you go, okay, that one worked.
Totally worked.
Yeah, it was good.
Worked. So there's not much more we can say. The idea that a fly is going to drive a gangster crazy to the point where, and the fly ends up killing the guy with a cannon or something. I forget what how he does it. Yeah, and the fly ends up getting killed again. You finally got him, and he gets reincarnated again.
Yeah, exactly.
So it keeps going. So it's awesome. And of course, the woman's gorgeous.
Oh yeah.
She ended up. She was also in. There was another movie she was in. I kept saying she's the lady from Eega.
Oh
I can't remember what it was, but see again, it's all fuzzy.
I don't know. As long as it wasn't that one about the guy who can't poop.
That was a good movie though. I didn't hate that one.
Really?
Yeah, that's the one they travel, right?
Yeah. I was like, that was all right.
All right. Okay, next one.
All right. Oh well, forget about it. Right. This is
the most grounded and the most American of all the films we saw, as far as I'm concerned.
Well, yeah. I mean, this one's super grounded. I mean,
it's called The Lunchbox, by the way, in case you can't see it.
Yeah, if you can't.
And this is the one that's got Irfan Khan. Is that his name?
Yes.
Yes. So that's the one. He's the actor from Jurassic World. Played the helicopter crash.
Yeah, he's the guy that's actually had a number of roles in American films.
I think he was in Pi too. Life of Pi.
Yeah, he is. He's a pretty. He was. And unfortunately, he passed away right around when this movie came out.
This is a nice film.
Yeah.
This is a beautiful film.
Now, I forget if this won the Oscar for Best Foreign Language. I know it was at least nominated that year.
Don't know.
This was the this was the choice that India put forward as its film to go into competition at the Academy Awards.
It's a beautiful film. It's about a man who has he's an insurance agent or insurance adjuster. I don't know what they are over there. And he's got a protege he's training because he's getting laid off.
Right.
So they make him train the guy. Wow. There's also another story of a woman who has a husband who's not paying attention to her.
Right.
And she makes beautiful lunches, beautiful food.
Wonderful food.
And there's this crazy thing that this film brings up that I've never seen is there are these companies in India that transport lunches to office buildings.
Right.
And that's what this lady does. She makes these lunches in these beautiful tins, these tins that stack. And they take them to the office buildings and they pass them out to the people.
Yeah.
She's thinking that she's sending them to her husband.
Right.
And actually this guy, Irfan Khan, is getting them by accident.
Yeah.
And she's leaving. I think ultimately they start leaving. He leaves notes or somebody's leaving notes in there.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And they develop this relationship through the lunchbox.
Yeah.
And ultimately, it turns out that they end up meeting together. I don't think they actually hook up because he's too old. So. She's very young. Mm-hmm. I think the end is that they end up potentially meeting each other. Yeah. Because she ends up leaving her husband.
Right.
And starting a new life, and he ends up. But it's just a beautiful film.
It's super sweet, and it feels natural.
Oh, that's what I mean. It's grounded.
Yeah,
grounded.
Yeah. Even though it's funny because I know that, like the people who do that every day, that deliver the lunch boxes, they might have been a little offended because I've heard that those guys are so super organized that
that would never happen.
I've heard that actually literally, even though it's like this super non-technological setup, Like it works unbelievably well. Like literally other companies, like American companies and European companies, have come and studied their operational processes.
Yeah, I forget the name of what they are. Again, see, like, we're not going to know any details. We just remember.
Sorry,
the film.
guys.
Yeah. And he was great.
Yeah.
The woman it was heartbreaking.
Yeah, it's
but they fall in love through her lunches, her food, and
it's like what was that movie? Like Water for Chocolate, and that's basically about another story about a woman. It's obviously very different from this one, but like whose feelings come through her food, right? And and that's like the food that she makes for this guy that has unrequited love for, or whatever. It's been a long time since I've seen that movie.
Well, that's basically.
But it's kind of a lot like what's happening here. It's different though. I mean, but yeah, this is a classic. Yeah, great. Can't recommend it highly enough.
Great. All right, I know the last one. I think you're going to know the last one. This is the one that I just.
This movie.
This is a good one.
Yeah, this movie is one of those ones where there were a couple of. This is one of the few like straight up horror movies that we watched from India, right?
Yeah.
There's no two ways about it. It's horror
based on a lot of myth.
Yeah. And it's extra creepy for us because in the sense that we're watching it and we're not getting any of the cultural markers or any of this stuff that, somebody who grew up in India and understands Indian culture might go, oh, this is that, or this is that. So there's a few moments in this movie when they happen. I was literally like, there's like, there's a couple of scenes, and it sounds so weird because it has to do with like little dough babies that they're making and things like that.
A lot of dough.
There's a lot of dough in this movie.
All right, so the premise is? The premise is that this is all based on. It gets into the womb of a god.
Yes,
and there's a family that. There's a myth about a guy who they had to bury or something or put in this womb of this god. Because he was trying to steal wealth or something. I can't remember what was going on.
And it's like they get little nuggets of gold or something.
They do. The whole idea is if you go down into this womb and you can get the whatever this guy is that they buried to come out, he has a loincloth full of coins.
That's right.
And they have to grab the loincloth. If they grab the loincloth, they get riches.
Yes.
So this guy exploited that and kept going down there, and he became rich. And then ultimately it didn't, he became too rich, and then the government, independence was taken away. So his house was taken away. Then he teaches his son to go down there, and that's when all hell breaks loose.
Yeah.
And visually, this thing is one of the most stunning ones that we saw.
It's super scary.
And the thing that happens at the end in the tunnel, there's also trees growing in people's bodies. There's an old witch that's taking care of the thing, and she's got a tree growing out of her, and
it's really
but
bizarre
ultimately
stuff.
The reveal of what happens in the womb. And okay, so I'll just one of the premises is that they throw dough down, then this thing goes after the dough, and they can go steal the coins while he's distracted with the dough. So they also bring other people in there that have been cheating with them, and they end up killing them down there, and more trees grow out of them and stuff like that. But he trains his son, and the son goes, well, if one piece of dough works, we should just throw a bunch down there and really confuse them and then take everything we want. Well, it turns out for every dough they threw down, another one of these monsters comes squeezing out of the thing and crawling all over the place, and it's just red and gross and just great.
Well, the scene when you kind of got a front-on shot of him, and then the second one kind of peeks out from behind him, that was fantastic.
Right.
Like, what a great reveal.
Right.
You're just like, oh, boy.
Yeah.
It's that great, it's that classic thing, it's like you get greedy,
Right.
It's,
the whole
they
point.
got a good thing going,
Right.
And he got...
And ultimately the son breaks it's a curse. They've been cursed. The family's cursed.
Yeah.
And this starts with, you remember the woman who's giving the guy the hand job at the beginning, the old king, she's in there.
Yeah, that's
There's the old king, and then the myth, and the grandmother living in with the two little kids, and the trees growing out of her face. And I mean, it's just like insane.
It's crazy.
And by the end of it, you're like, this is the greatest thing I've ever seen.
It's so unnerving too,
Totally unnerving.
But it's such a good movie. Yeah. It's really well made. Apparently not a huge hit like over there, but also made for basically on a shoestring budget. Really? And it, as we like to say, every cent is on the screen.
It's on the screen. There's no question about that.
Yeah.
And they shot this. Some of the backstory is they shot it all during the rainy season in India.
Yes.
Which is what do they call that? There's what's the
Monsoon season?
That's not. There's something.
Typhoon season?
Maybe, but they had to wait,
right?
Because they wanted to shoot this thing with rain and dark and just dingy and
they got it.
It's all on there. It's great. And the scene inside the womb at the end when all these things start coming out is just stunning.
It's great.
It's just great.
It's fantastic.
So so there you go. I mean, listen, there's thousands of films we could have talked about.
Oh, yeah.
There's amazing films being made in India. There's no question about it.
Sure.
There's actors that, my brother John, who was on our podcast and started his 10-ish minute review based on Indian cinema, is still doing those.
Yeah.
His he just has people recommend films, and he
watches them.
I don't know what he does all day because all he's doing is watching these films.
He's cranking them out,
but he's cranking them out, and he's reviewing them, and he's building up his base. His subscribers are really catching on to what he's doing, and he's still into these. I just honestly couldn't do it anymore. Yeah, it's just too much because I want to do our films, and talk about our stuff, and then these you have to really dive in, and you have to go full bore.
Yep,
and I made a huge mistake in the Yippee-Ki-Yay when we talked about ORR because I made a comment about, I think the dancing was sped up. And I almost caused an international incident because they were very offended that we would think that those guys weren't really dancing. If you've seen the film, you know what I'm talking about. Won the Oscar for the music.
Well, yeah. I mean,
it
actually won an Oscar.
Right,
and
because it's
part
fantastic.
Of
the dance was incredible.
And they even incorporated, it was not Jimmy Fallon, it was Jimmy Kimmel, who was hosting that year, and he actually even had the dance incorporated into like his opening monologue.
Right.
In addition
when
to
you
them
see
doing
that, they did it at the Oscars, so that tells you
fantastic.
But anyway, so that's our first top five. We just wanted to kind of reminisce about our
the five.
The five. What did I say? Top.
You said
not
top five.
Top. It's the five.
The five.
We have no rating with this. It's just these are the five that we both really. And this honorable mention. What was the one you wanted to talk about?
The other one I wanted to talk about was it's called The Last Film Show.
The Last Film Show. Yeah. Remind me that one again.
That one's the one about the little kid who
the train.
The train, and he's friends with the projectionist at the movie theater, and later on it's like they switch over to a digital projector, and it's just and he makes his own movie projector, and it's really just a sweet movie about a little kid and his love of the film.
Yeah,
and
it's a little like what's the Italian?
Cinema Paradiso. There you go. It's definitely got Cinema Paradiso vibes. Right. But that was a great movie. I mean, I like movies about movie theaters, so that really falls into what I enjoy.
They lean way into that one.
And I really did like.
And they had the train in there. He goes at the train. He grows up. I remember that one
because his dad. Yeah, he's basically it's.
But for me, Tumbbad and Andhadhun, the one we talked about at the beginning, the blind guy, fake
those
blind guy.
Fantastic.
The five that we talked about here are definitely the ones that
those are great.
I remembered, and I would highly recommend to American viewers because I think that they would appreciate these.
Yeah, they're good movies.
All right, well, there you go. We'll have more of these, the five. From
sure.
You, right?
Let's do
we'll
it.
Come up with some subjects, and we'll do our five whatevers that are.
I just rewatched again.
I have no idea.
Once Upon a Time in the West.
Oh, well, there you go. I think we should do a top five westerns.
We should.
The five
westerns. Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah. We'll do that next time. You want to do the five?
We can do the
westerns?
5 on westerns.
I'll be dressing up, by the way.
Nice.
I got a new hat and a new shirt. So
cowboy style.
I'm going cowboy style. You do whatever. I know you don't like to dress up, but I am going to go a little cowboy style.
I just don't have any cowboy shit. Maybe I'll bring a 6-shooter.
I don't know why I buy the shit, but I have cowboy. I'll never ride a horse or anything.
Yeah.
There you go.
I've ridden a horse a couple times.
Yeah, once when I was 13, I fell off the back.
Oh, wow, really?
A tree branch came down, hit me in the neck, knocked me down. God. Yeah, it was brutal. It was rough.
I actually rode a horse. It was pretty cool. I actually rode a horse through Pebble Beach Golf Club.
No.
Pebble Beach, everybody knows the world famous golf course, right?
Was riding through the course?
Well, there's actually a Pebble Beach Equestrian Club. And I was at the time, girlfriend, now wife, we went to that area of California actually to go see a motorcycle race. And I set up all these fun things to do. And I thought she might like to go horseback riding. Not really her thing, but we ended up because it was on they're in the same complex really. Yeah. So we literally were riding on the golf course to the point where we had to stop and let the little golf carts go by, and we were literally riding.
You were able to stop the horse? You had no problem?
Oh, yeah.
You had no issues?
That horse knew who was in charge.
Yeah, see, not me. 13 years old, thing came down, I was like...
Yeah, I've only been horseback riding 3 times. I'm hardly an expert. Yeah. Those horses, let me put it this way, they knew what their job was, and their job was to just walk slowly, with some guy who'd never been on a horse before. That's all they did. They knew
it's a good job. Pebble Beach. All right. So the next the five we do will be Westerns.
Westerns.
Is there just Westerns?
Yeah, just Westerns.
All right. So send me your list and
There's
we'll
a million of them.
All right. Well, there you go. Well, welcome to the lounge.
I love it.
I like this new thing.
I like it too, man.
All right.